Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vratislav Kalenda, and today I will be speaking about a topic that is very close to my heart. Today I will be speaking about developer experience. So, who did hear this term, developer experience? Who is familiar with this? Raise hands. Okay, maybe 15, 10%. You maybe heard this term when you are using a great software, like the experience that you have when you are deploying to Heroku, or the experience that you have when you use some really cool linter or really cool command line tool. But today, I would like to show you that the developer experience can be also taken in a broader scope. And the way how we understand developer experience, I would like to show it by a story. So buckle up. So story time. Imagine yourself and your team that you are working on a software project, and the deadline approaches, right? So you get a little bit nervous, right? You go into crunch time mode. And so you go to your favorite tool or a board where you do the software development, process management, right? You take the story or the task or the use case and you start working on it, right? Then, late in the night, the whole team, tries to finish until the deadline. You have a great team, so everybody's on board, everybody's working. But sometimes some things maybe are not so great. Maybe the architecture that you are working with is a little bit, you outgrown your architecture, so it's really hard to deliver the features that you need. Or you don't have a great code style linter, so you have a problem with the quality of the code and with the messiness of it. And maybe there's some big boss that's, like this, standing, and he's like, when it's be done, we need to ship, like 5 minutes ago, right? This kind of pressure. And but you use your favorite version system. You create a pull request. You do the code review, and you finally merge it, right? And you deploy it, and hopefully you celebrate as those guys. This is from the NASA when they landed the Mars rover, right? So hopefully it went like this. I think that we can empathize with this story, right? Everybody kind of experienced something like this. So we think that the effectivity you feel, the happiness, the testing you need, the processes, but also the negative things like the fears, anxiety, also the flow, architecture, this whole experience of being a developer. That's what we call a developer experience. And that's how we think about it. And let me tell you one thing. Happy developers are necessary to create exceptional software. In the long term, I mean. And that's why, and by having a great developer experience, you can ensure that your developers are happy, motivated, productive, and are less likely to leave your team or your company. So what do we think that are the basis of great developer experience? We think that teams having great developer experience work in those 4 areas. They have a fitting architecture for what they are trying to do. They have great tools. They have processes to back that all up. And most of all, they have a non-toxic, healthy team culture. Let's go in each of those boxes, and let's see. I would like to offer you some framework how you can think about what you have in your company, in your team, and kind of evaluate if it's a good developer experience or not. So let's start with the architecture. There's no right architecture. There's only simpler architectures and more complex ones. And it's a constant struggle. And probably your architecture is always on some journey from a simple one to a complex one. If you are a little bigger project, you usually find yourself in a situation where your architecture, I mean software architecture, is your software outgrown the architecture that you currently have, but it's not yet big enough to adopt the next architecture that comes after. And it's always a trade-off between more pain later if you stay, or more pain now if you redo the architecture or adapt microservices with API gateways and proxies and this kind of stuff. My point is, you have to decide if it's really worth it to invest into the more complex architecture now, because if you are doing a startup or a small project, the future, the later, might never come for various reasons. So choose well. So how you should be thinking when you are choosing an architecture? You should be thinking in architecture constraints, like size and complexity of your project, or the problem that you are trying to build. If it's a landing site for a startup, you don't need microservices, right? If it's a small thing, you don't need microservices. But if you need to deliver thousands of requests in scale, yeah, you probably want specialized microservices just for that. You should also take best tool for the job. You won't do API request on TensorFlow, right? But you would probably use it for machine learning. So sometimes you have to make the architecture more complex because of the things that you are, for example, trying to combine machine learning and API requests. Then you need to have two things. Of course, team size. That's another constraint. It doesn't make sense to make microservices if you are a team of two, or very little sense. Maybe the bigger the better here. And of course, it has to have a culture fit with your company. I mean, if you are in some really big enterprises, this like everybody can deploy architecture and everybody can run the CI pipeline, that would be great, right? But maybe your culture isn't ready for it, and you would hit some brick walls there. On other way, what we think, there's the good developer experience. Like, which architecture has good developer experience? I think it has those three properties. It has great introspection. That means that if something breaks or you need to monitor it, you are able to, and you are able to do it with consistency and precision. Another great thing that improves the developer's life is if you have short feedback loops. That means any architecture that, from code push to deploy, it takes more than, 10 minutes, that's shitty experience. And it should be hard to break. So do you know these microservices sometimes have this really interesting property that like thousands requests are OK, and then 1,000 first request is lost somewhere, right? So if you are building architectures, try to make them resilient, because there's nothing more infuriating for the developers, when the stuff just randomly breaks. Let's talk tools. Tools comes with a cost. They are never free, because you have the setup cost, you have the maintenance cost, and so on. But you should be striving to automate repetitive tasks, because it's hard to be consistent all the time. It's hard to be, when you are building the software or testing the software, it's hard to do it the same way each time. And let's be honest, there's nothing creative that the developer is interested in building or testing the software. I mean, the manual testing, right? And the most important thing here is that the repetitive tasks kills developer spirit. And that's a bad developer experience. What to automate? Well, you should probably start with the tests, build and deploy. If you have this mastered, then you should go to code style. You should go to infrastructure provisioning. Look at the infrastructure as a code movement. That's all the Kubernetes of the world, right? And you can also, the new trend is automating security, at least the most basic ones. I mean, the security linters or OWASP automated penetration testing. You can have that in your CI as the first line of defense. And when you are configuring the tools, don't let your ego into in the way. If you don't live with the tool for a while and see if it works for you. Don't try to configure it right away. The reason is because then everyone who works on your team needs to know that configuration. It's not standard. It will be hard to find help, and you are kind of cutting yourself off from the knowledge and wisdom of the internet. And if you customize your tools way too much, maybe no issue on the GitHub will ever help you, because nobody will know your setup. And let's talk processes. Why do you want to have some processes in software development? Because they work like an automated checklists, like steps that you have to go each time, and you need to be consistent. It's really similar with the tools, because processes are, that's not the creative part usually. And they can help you to substitute habits and discipline of your team. Because if you have new guys or very senior guys, they just want to get stuff done, right? And they are they don't always go through all the steps. So the processes help you to have a consistent work done. And it also can help you to offload some mental burden from your developers. They can focus on the creative stuff. So what processes can you introduce? You should have some process for development, right? You should not develop let's do this and then, no. You should have something like, I don't know, I don't care if Scrum, Kanban, Waterfall. You should have some process. You should iterate over it. You should have a process for QA if you are big enough, because you want to ship consistent software. You should have a process for deployment. Also, a team feedback. You should have a process how to give non-toxic team feedback. And if you are big enough, you should also have a process for onboarding new developers into your platform and into your team. How to think about processes? Think in two things. Think in risk mitigations. What are the biggest risks for my endeavor? Maybe the software is too complex, and without good development process, there's a risk that we won't build the right thing. Or if we have a I don't know, healthcare application, and without good QA, there could be disasters that would cost human lives. So that's one thing that you can think which processes to invest your energy in. But more importantly, think in enablements. Think, what does this process enables me to do? Maybe it enables me to have a consistent throughput of my team. Maybe it helps me to predict the future of the development, how much features we will fit into each sprint. So thinking in enablements can abstract all the, should it be Scrum, should it be Kanban, because then you can just compare the processes and you can ask yourself, what I need for my team to be able to do, and then you choose the right processes. We found, during our years of working with various partners, we find those anti-patterns in their teams. We found that they have a mentality of one size fits all, for example. So if you have a team of two that should do a proof of concept, they take waterfall approach for half a year, and they're like, yeah, let's do it like this. They also have a lot of people have process over engineering tendencies. That's like this, you really need, I don't know, maybe in your Kanban you need backlog to do doing in review done, but they have this needs to be designed, doing, ready to be tested, in review, after the review, done, or something, right? And just think if it's really necessary for the way how you work. And this is also, and the last thing that's mainly what enterprises do now, that there's a big hype about agile, and for most of the managers, or some of them, it's an excuse to throw more work at the developers because they are agile, right? They should cope. So don't think that any process will inherently, grants you the right to overload your developers. Lastly, but not last, let's talk about culture. Because this aspect is sometimes forgotten. But for a great developer experience, you need to have a great culture. And the great team culture starts with a great company culture. You should know what's the purpose of your company. Why does your company exist? And to be honest, to make money is not the right answer, because that's not the purpose that your guys in your teams want. You, as a team leaders of your teams, should know what's the purpose of your team within that organization. Maybe you exist because you need to guarantee 99.99% uptime for the internet banking solution so that people can get to their money. That's a great purpose to have, to basically enable people to get to their money, right? But know your purpose and communicate it in the team. And the culture itself is the most important brainware, and brainware is like software, but it runs in a brain, that you can install within your organization and within your team. Because every decision that the developer will take will be filtered through the brainware that you installed into your developers. And if they don't agree with the brainware you installed, they will just ignore it. We think that the teams with great developer experience, high productive team, has these following traits. They have a sense of impact, either in the company or in the world. They know that their work matters. It's that they are not, just making money. They are actually improving somebody else's lives. They have a great sense of ownership and responsibility. They are responsible for the success, either in team or everyone in the team should have some responsibility. And they feel great ownership, so they can decide how to do the stuff. They have a common goal in the team, in the company, and between divisions or whatever you have. And you should have friendliness and honesty in the culture. For example, in my company, we have something that we call "Hey Bro" culture, which is basically this pattern that we have for the friendliness and honesty. We just say everything how it is. We don't make any shadows around it. We just, with great respect and with the care to not hurt somebody else's feelings, we just say the feedback how it is. And also very important is to allow for failure. You need your developers and your team members to be brave. They should take risks. But the risks should be always calculated, always mitigated, and always, you should know how big of a boom every action does. And we found these traits in the culture with bad developer experiences. It's usually the finger pointing, right? Like, it's because of the quality assurance team because they did a bad job testing it. It's because the development team, because they didn't develop it well. It's because Joe that, didn't code review my code, and so on. That's a really toxic thing to have, but it happens a lot. You should instead, trying to do the root cause analysis and solve the problem, basically. There's usually big penalties for failures. This is like, your boss coming and saying, if you don't meet the deadline, you are all fired. Something like that, right? Constant crunch times, constant overloading of the teams. That's also a big red flag. Hostility and uncertainty, like this unhealthy competitiveness within the teams that is more about who gets promoted or if I don't do a good job, this guy will do a better job than me and then I will be fired, right? This kind of culture. And, of course, diluted responsibility. Who's responsible? Nobody. That happens a lot, especially in enterprises. Because you should take your responsibility, and, if you screw something up, you should man up and be, yeah, I screwed it up, sorry guys, this is what I do next time to not screw it up again. So we think that this is the 4 pillars that you can think about when you are trying to enable great developer experience within your team and within your company. And we really do think that it's important. Let me show you why. You probably know this one, right? This is like the usual development triangle of everything, where you have the time, money, and scope. And if you want to increase scope or increase quality, you need to either increase time or increase money. But let's be honest, that's not how it works in reality, because it doesn't look like this. It much more looks like this, because you can always just crunch the developer into the room, and say you won't come out until you finish the task, or some other type of emotional cost that you can incur on your team. And having great developer experience helps you with keeping this emotional cost at check, so it doesn't run wild. Let's be honest, there always will be an emotional cost. But in order to keep your developers happy and working for you, you need to keep the emotional cost low. And maybe if you are not happy with your job, even if you have a great salary, a great thing you are working, you have to think about whether you are not paying this big externality, this big emotional cost that your company is willingly or unwillingly putting on you. And you as a team leader, you should think about the emotional cost that the team is paying to deliver the product that you are working on. We think that we need a more holistic approach when developing software, because this industry is really young, and mostly we are thinking about it in a really technical sense. Which architecture would fit the functional and non-functional requirements, or how should I do X or Y? But we should not forget that we are humans. Humans have emotions. Humans need to feel purpose. Humans need to have a joy from their work. That's why we would like to invite you to a discussion to think about these things, because it's really important to not just deliver the software, but also feel good about it, right? So that's why I'm inviting you to a discussion. We just launched a website called dxheroes.io. There's nothing there, just a small box where you can leave us an email. And when we are ready to show you something, because we will be open sourcing the methodology and the way how we think about those things, we would love to get your feedback on that. So thank you.
So hello, we have 2 questions on Slido. So first one is, who is responsible for building DX?
Okay. I personally think that building great DX should be a responsibility of every team member, because they should be aware of the culture, the architecture, the processes, and the tools. But the great developer experience doesn't, it's not like that the boss can come and say, have a great developer experience, you guys. It's more about being a leadership example. You as a team leader should set the developer experience, and you should ask the guys to help you to maintain it.
And another, as a developer, what can I do with DX?
Like how you can change it? Or, well, you can always go to your leader and say, this sucks, and you should probably have you should not be just negative. You should have a plan how to fix it, and you should offer it to your boss. The thing is that I really do believe that islands of positive deviations work. So if you set an example of good developer culture within your company, it will probably spread, because the rumors start to spread about that this team has a more pleasant working conditions than the other team.
So that's all there. So have you got any question in public? Or you can write on Slido.
Okay, then that's all. Thank you very much, and Let's have a discussion.